Welcome into the DNVR Rockies Podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Strava CBD coffee will improve the quality of your morning because it's rich in CBD and CBG, and will help you with chronic headaches, joint pains, IBS, and so much more. If you use code DNVR25, you'll receive 25% off your first purchase at Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, and join with me, as he is always, the voice of the Colorado Rockies for AT&T Sportsnet. It's Mr. Drew Goodman. How you doing today, Goody?
Good. I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Pretty good. It's bittersweet time right now in the baseball world. Not even looking ahead on the calendar for next month, December 2nd, as it were. But we've got baseball. It might be one of our last games. I don't know. Game 6, Houston, Atlanta. Do we see Game 7 tomorrow? What do you like tonight between Luis Garcia and Max Fried?
I'm going to say we do see a Game 7. Garcia, we'll see how long he can go. He's coming back on 3 days rest. Nasty stuff. It's been good. I just think, I don't, for whatever reason, because I'm not, you can't say momentum, because momentum is next day's starting pitchers, or Weaver famously said. And I think it's an accurate statement. But, Houston's confident. They're at home. They play very well at home. And they had an extraordinary comeback the other day, down 4-0 and 5-4, and end up winning in not blowout fashion, but going away fashion. So I'm going to say, yeah, we're going to see a Game 7.
I think we are too. We know the kind of talent that Atlanta has, but the fact that they go up 3-1 on the Dodgers, and you think, don't count out the Dodgers team yet, and Atlanta gets it done. For them to possibly do it twice here now, first to the Dodgers, then to the Astros, that almost defies odds in a sense. Even though they're up, they really had to get up, especially with the loss of Charlie Morton. That was such a Pyrrhic victory they ended up having there early on, where they won the game, but it could have ended up costing them the series. And I think it is going to go the full 7.
Well, we've seen, Houston lost their number one basically as well, and even coming into the year, they didn't have their true number one in Verlander. It's I think in sports, it is always a survival of the fittest at the end, and there is good fortune involved. Can a team stay, relatively more healthy than its opponent? But I also think more than anything in the game of baseball, there's the hot factor. And now hot can be cooled off quickly by a really good pitching performance. And you see a team on a roll for a couple, 3 games, and they're scoring a bunch of runs, and all of a sudden they don't get anything going. We've seen that at times in the postseason this year. I give Atlanta a lot of credit. I give Alex Anthopoulos a lot of credit because his moves at the trade deadline, Patrick, were not as celebrated as some of the other teams. And certainly I think number one before the trade deadline would have to be the Dodgers. And I still would say it's number one because you get a Hall of Fame pitcher still pitching at the very, very top of his craft. And you get one of the elite position players in the game in Trey Turner. Injuries caught up to the Dodgers. Give Atlanta credit. They were hot. But those 4 guys that they picked up near the trade deadline when seemingly they were decimated by injuries, not all of them were necessarily the sexiest names out there, but all have produced, from Jorge Soler to naturally Adam Duvall in round 2 there, Jock Peterson, and how many big hits and homers in particular he's had in the postseason. And maybe, we'll see how it plays out. The potential MVP of the World Series from Atlanta's perspective, Eddie Rosario's in that conversation, right? So he did a great job. And Atlanta's played really well down the stretch. Freddie Freeman, after striking out 7 of his first 8 at-bats, is getting big hits for the Braves. It looked like he had one the other day, that monstrous home run. It's been fun. It's been a little of everything. And, I don't have a horse in the race, so I'd love to see a 7-game series.
It's the best 2 words in all of sports, right? Game 7. And it's also, great to hear November baseball, right? It's only the 7th time that's ever happened too. That's something that, in our lifetimes when we were much younger men, you would have thought, well, something has gone wrong for baseball to be in November. Are they adding 180 games? What's going on that the season is going to extend that long? And this will be the first time since 2017, but the 7th time overall. And again, that's nice. We may crown a new Mr. November. I don't know if you've got a guy that you think that could come up big. I think Alex Bregman may have to be that guy for Houston. He's dropped to the 7th spot in the order, as you talked about, being hot at the right time. But it's going to take somebody in Houston's lineup to be the next iteration of Mr. November, like Derek Jeter was in 2001, possibly for Houston to win this thing over the course of the next 2 days.
Well, Jose Altuve's been great. He's hit a ton of home runs. He's up to 23 now in the postseason. He's now got the Crawford boxes. He's a dead pull hitter for the most part, and he's going to ambush guys. So if you had to pick one guy, and you want to predict, hey, who's going to have the big hit, you never know. But picking Jose Altuve, you're never wrong to do that.
For Game 6 tonight, they will have the dome open. The roof will be open. Temperatures in about mid-60s. There's potential chance of rain if we happen to get to Game 7. The temperature's dropping, so we'll see what happens. If the roof closes, you got to think an advantage for the Astros being at home with that the noise being trapped inside the stadium. You've been there in that ballpark. What is the difference maybe between being open, being closed, or what's the atmosphere like when the sound can't go anywhere but stay right there?
Well, it's loud. It becomes an indoor stadium. I really like Minute Maid Park. I think they did a really nice job with it. It's got character. It's got, again, the Crawford boxes. It has nooks and crannies, which is so beautiful, I think, about baseball, that there's not field uniformity as we have in other sports, and that's fine. Soccer pitches, whatever it is, and football fields, 100 yards long, and hoop court is 94 feet, all those things. But I find it very interesting when you go ballpark to ballpark, and not only how that park plays, but some of the different dimensions. And yeah, that'll favor Houston, but let's not forget, Atlanta puts out a really powerful lineup also. And if they run into it, on the pull side, the Crawford boxes are inviting to guys like Duvall. And, we've seen Jock Peterson go opposite field. I mean, he can go foul line to foul line. So listen, it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the beautiful thing about big games in any sport, but particularly in baseball, you never know where that heroic performance is going to come from. And we've also learned in this series, Patrick, that the game's never over until, the 27th out is recorded. I mean, how many people were getting ready to pop champagne in Atlanta the other night when they get a granny in the first inning, right?
We know Red Sox fans know what that was like, about popping champagne a bit prematurely there in 1986 underneath Shea Stadium. So you're right. You've got to get all 27 outs. And it may come down to the bullpens, right? Max Fried, of course, has some of the better numbers. His final 12 starts of the season looked fantastic. But since, going 6 scoreless against the Brewers there in the opening series in the NLDS, he's looked a little shaky. So it may come down to the bullpens.
Yeah, Patrick, I don't think there's any may about it. And I say that to you respectfully, because this. The sport, at least how it's played right now, has changed. And I know it's been criticized a little bit of late when Ian Anderson had the no-hitter. And he wasn't super sharp, but he still had a no-hitter going after 5 innings and 70-some-odd pitches, and he gets yanked. This is always going to be, the way it's played currently, about the bullpens. I mean, you look upon it now as an outlier performance if somebody, starter was in the game in the 7th inning or even later than that, because teams through analytics are reluctant to have a lineup face, even if a guy's going well, have them face the same guy a third time with the game still relatively within its balance. So, I don't necessarily like it, because I think that it adds intrigue when you have a great performance going on with a starting pitcher, but that's how this thing's been played out, certainly.
Yeah, I think both bullpens, it's pretty much a tie. It's neck and neck. Atlanta's used up a lot of their guys on Sunday, and Kendall Graveman probably. Well, look, everyone's going to be available for this game. It's a must-win game for Houston, but I think as it lines up, Houston's bullpen might be a little bit fresher today, but it's going to take our guy Tyler Matzik. It's going to take former Rockies first-round pick to he could be that big guy in this series. He's already been so big for them this entire postseason, and you love to see a story like that.
Yeah, it's a great thing about postseason baseball, especially elimination baseball. You don't wait for tomorrow, even Atlanta, because they're trying to win, 1 out of 2 now, right? But they're not waiting. They're not going to hold off on somebody if they need Matzik to get 6 outs tonight, and he has to throw 38 pitches to do it. I could see them going in that direction, even if it puts his availability tomorrow if Houston were to win in jeopardy. I mean, nobody's going to turn the baseball down these next 36 hours, right? Nobody's turning it down.
It is nice to see that both managers, Snicker and Dusty Baker, they are going with the hot hand, and by that they're going away from the guys that are cold. Bregman dropped to the 7th in the lineup. We're also seeing that in Atlanta's lineup here tonight for Game 6 with the DH now back. With this game going to be in Houston, Jorge Soler will be batting 2nd, so Freddie Freeman drops to 3rd. And then Ozzie Albies, who's been a little cold as of late, he's going to be hitting 7th. It's nice that these managers they're going with the hot hand. You have to at this point in these games, much like with the bullpen, you got to go with who's hot.
Yes and no, and sometimes you'll see managers, and these guys are kind of mirroring each other right now. Brian Snicker and Dusty Baker. Dusty was the first to do it, as you mentioned, with dropping Bregman to 7th, and paid some dividends the other day. He had a big double early in that ball game, batting at the 7th spot. But there is the thought, hey, Ozzie Albies has hit the top 3 in the lineup all year. The reason we are here is because of Albies. I believe in him, and I'm not just going to mess with the lineup and potentially mess with his confidence, though, that's what Brian Snitker did. He's placed him in the 7 hole.
With the bullpens, again, being so critical in this series, I think we kind of touched on it at the beginning of the postseason, this idea that it's not terribly sexy baseball, and, it's nothing that a new CBA or a rule change is going to be able to impact, especially not now in postseason where it's a whole new season. But is there, necessarily anything that can be done about, just going to these relievers every single inning and, starting pitchers? It's a lot different too with, we had the pandemic. And so a lot of these guys are just gassed, right? A lot of these guys, after not getting the innings last year, they're not really able to stick around for much longer than 5 or 6 innings here in the postseason.
Well, I'm not, the gas. If you're gassed right now, yeah, you got enough adrenaline going. Yeah, there's fatigue. They've been playing since mid-February if you're a pitcher, right? But that doesn't mean anything here. They're ready to go, and they're going to be able to redline if they have to. In terms of rule changes, well, we've already seen one recently, and that's with the 3-batter minimum. I don't know what you'd implement, saying, oh, a starting pitcher has to go 5 innings. You can't do that. I mean, if he's getting his ass kicked, you have to keep him out there? That's ridiculous. That's ludicrous. I think games evolve, sports evolve, how you utilize players evolve. We are in we know what we've talked a lot about it. We know what this era is about. It's about, power, and it's about specialization when it comes to the arms that toe the rubber. And until a team, steps forward with, a half a dozen starters that average, 6 1/3 every night, you're going to see that and have success. You have to have success. Then there's always copycat. Teams will go, wait, so this team won it all. It doesn't matter what the sport is. Let's really scrutinize and evaluate how they did it. And then you'll see some change. I don't know how you'd go about implementing some sort of, change when it comes to a starter. And I don't necessarily think there should be. I know we'd like to see the pace picked up, and I know these games have been really, really lengthy. I saw something on Twitter today, Patrick, that you and I maybe can more greatly appreciate because we're both originally from the East, and I just got back from being back East for 11 days. The people who tend to, really bitch about when the games end are people on the East Coast because the games will end at 11:30, 12, 12:15, 12:30. It's also why they say they don't see the Dodgers play and the Giants play, and it's hurt. We'll talk about a local kid. This is a different sport, but I think that Christian McCaffrey would have won the Heisman Trophy a few years ago if he played for any school that was in the Central or Eastern time zone and not at Stanford, where a lot of people back East, a lot of voters didn't see what this kid was doing, and he ended up finishing a close second. But I think he would have won it. And it's always the people in the East that are kvetching about the length of the games and how and when they finish. And I understand that because let's take tonight. The game's going to start after 8 o'clock back East. And if you have to get up at 5 in the morning or whatever time you rise to go to work and you kind of hang in there with the ball game, you ain't getting a full night's sleep or anywhere close. I get it. But in terms of the whole pitching thing, I don't know how you change from how you would address, starters have to stay in there longer. I just don't think you can do that.
Those Pac-12 football games, man, they get over late, especially if you're playing against Hawaii. But I think you touched on. I think the way that we can maybe come back a little bit from all these bullpen games and whatnot isn't a rule about, as you said, saying, hey, your pitcher has to stay in here for that long. And again, that's ridiculous to do. But the max effort that these pitchers are throwing with, that if there is a clock, right? And so many of them now have been used to it, or at least have had the experience with it in the minor leagues, that if they are not, taking the full 20 seconds or whatever it may be for them to catch their breath or to step off to throw at max effort, then they're going to need to start scaling back just a little bit. And then it won't be about, throwing it as fast as you can every single pitch. It'll be a little bit more finesse, and we'll get back to those days of guys being able to go 7, 8 innings, and that'll become more common. It'll be back to the art of pitching than the art of overpowering. And I think, maybe that could be some hope. It's not a guarantee, but maybe there's some hope with that.
Yeah, I think during the bulk of the season, though, you're going to see more traditional stuff. You can't ask bullpen arms to make 95 appearances because you have guys that are nasty. You can kind of do this with the days off in a 7-game series in October. And now we're in November. You can get away with overusage of a bullpen in the critical days of the postseason. You cannot do it over the length of 162 games. Again, I don't know how you would legislate something that says you have to stay with a starter. That's now you're messing with the integrity of the game and the integrity of the potential outcome, because it may not just be, we're pulling him out, Ian Anderson, because we don't want to see him face the lineup a third time. What if Ian Anderson in 3 1/3 is giving up 5 runs? I mean, you're obligated to keep him out there for another, 5 outs. That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. We're definitely not going to see anything as crazy like that. But you might see some crazy things if you're hanging out down at the DNVR bar on the corner of Colfax and York, especially for any of our watch parties. Our members can go ahead and join in all of our great tailgates that we have before Broncos games. If you're there watching Avalanche or the Nuggets, that we've got the game on all the televisions. The sound is on as well, so you get that great play-by-play. We serve Hassel Cattle Company. We brought you the damn good beer. Now we're bringing you the damn good beef, so good that you can now get their Wagyu beef at the DNVR bar at HassleCattleCompany.com. And when you use code DNVR10 at checkout, you save 10% every single time at HassleCattleCompany.com, HASSELL cattlecompany.com. Make sure that you're signed up and subscribed. 50 cents for the first month at the DNVR.com. And if you want an annual membership, you're going to go ahead and get a free shirt from DNVR Locker. So a lot of perks there for all of our members. As I said, we've got damn good beef. We've got damn good beer from Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. And we also have their seltzer, damn good seltzer. It's good company hard seltzer, now available on the corner of Colfax and York, the DNVR bar. And if you're not able to get out to the bar or you're somewhere else this time of year, well, the 15-can sampler of good company hard seltzer is going to do you just nice. And if you're in the Denver metro area, make sure you do yourself nice by checking out one of the locations of Sexy Pizza. They've been in part of the Denver community for the past 13 years, and they are as good as it gets. Of course, you know that if you were at one of our Broncos tailgates. They've got hand-tossed deck oven pizza with made from scratch each morning dough. You can choose your own adventure with any of their wide range of toppings, and they love supporting local organizations and nonprofits. So you can actually check them out and go to their About page for the donations link if you want to partner up with them at www.sexy.pizza. You can stop by any of their 4 locations in Capitol Hill, Old South Pearl, Jefferson Park, and Park Hill, with a new location in Trinidad, Colorado, coming soon. Well, Rockies baseball, before we get to Rockies baseball, actually, we got some NL West baseball. Bob Melvin named as the new manager on Monday of the San Diego Padres. Their first veteran manager in quite some time after, giving the reins over to Andy Green and then Jace Tingler. How great of a match is Bo Mel, as he's come to be nicknamed there in San Diego, with Bob Melvin as the manager of the Padres?
Well, it's a great move that San Diego was able to get Bob Melvin. Oakland was willing to allow him to interview, and then once he interviewed, you knew it was going to be a no-brainer. I think in 11 years in Oakland, he took them to the postseason 6 times. They always are doing it on a shoestring budget. He's a guy that naturally will command great respect. Nobody's going to second guess, Bob Melvin based on his resume. So San Diego's basically setting themselves up. There can be no excuses short of, devastating injuries again to their pitching staff. They're going to be loaded. They're going to have a really talented team. But guess what? The Dodgers are going to be loaded again as well. And we'll see how the Giants play next year. And I say that not out of disrespect for what they accomplished this year, but a lot of those guys in their mid-30s had career years or close to career years. And, are you able to replicate that at that age? I mean, again, we're not talking about, 26, 27-year-olds where you say, well, okay, they're in the middle of their prime. So it's reasonable to expect that they can come back and put up similar types of numbers. And then, the Rockies, let's see, what they're able to do, how much they're able to improve, and hopefully they can narrow the gap between those teams that are in front of them. But San Diego is going to be really talented, and now they have a veteran, proven manager that, again, will command respect. And so I thought it was a great move by the Padres. There's nothing not to like if you're a Padre fan there.
Yeah, especially, getting him away from Oakland. He still had he had signed an extension, or rather his extension was optioned by Oakland, and still had 1 more year left. Longest tenured manager too, right? Since 2011. So he's been around the game for a while.
And he knows the division. I know it's been a while, but he was with Arizona. So it's not like he is going to unfamiliar locales, and he knows the stadiums, and he understands, he understands what it's like to come to Coors Field even. So again, kudos to AJ Preller for being able to pry Bob Melvin away from Oakland. It was, I guess, an interesting set of circumstances, Patrick, because you have a widely respected and widely successful manager, and yet he is applying his talents with a team that has limited resources financially. And for that reason, if you go knock on the door of the Dodgers and say, we want to go talk to Dave Roberts, that door is going to get shut in your face. They're going to say, go pound sand. Dave Roberts is under contract. He's our guy. Alex Cora in Boston. I know Aaron Boone, I think he just got an extension with the Yankees, and there were some who speculated, because the Yankees didn't win the whole thing, that Aaron Boone would be out. But again, those well-to-do teams, you're not going to give somebody an opportunity to take them away. I wouldn't think the Rockies. I know there's another year on the contract, for Buddy Black. If the Padres had called and said, hey, we want Buddy Black back to San Diego, unless that person went to their ownership and said, this is something I really, really want. Please allow me to do that. I just think it was the perfect set of circumstances for the Padres, in that Bob Melvin was with a club that, is not going to always compete when it comes to financial terms, whether it be with a player or a manager.
And he provided, great service to Oakland for a decade, and obviously a close relationship he has with Billy Beane is kind of the difference to say, hey, you know what, you can basically take our manager out from underneath us, which we don't see every day.
Now listen, on the other side, if I'm an Oakland fan, I'm pissed off,
right?
Because they keep winning. And they keep finding their way to the postseason. They're having a lot of success there, but you're like, wait a second, man. Why are we letting our manager go when he's under contract for another year? I wouldn't be, if I'm an Oakland fan, I wouldn't be thrilled about that.
They might be happy if they can get back the shortstop from the late '80s that led his team to a couple World Series, and Mr. Walt Weiss. That would be too bad.
Listen, I hope Walt gets another shot to manage. The Mets job is still open. Ties to New York. He's from Suffern, New York, Rockland County, just outside the city. And Oakland is where he came up and was Rookie of the Year. So as you said, not just the Oakland job, but there's a couple out there that at the conclusion of the World Series, I would be, very surprised if Walt didn't interview for one or both of those positions. And I hope he does, and I hope he gets one of them.
This week, a couple Rockies were finalists for a couple prestigious awards. German Marquez, Silver Slugger Award. Ryan McMahon, Gold Glove at third base. We all know what German Marquez has done, and I think the numbers back up and support the fact that he's one of the best hitting pitchers, and if not tops. But Ryan McMahon, you saw him. You've seen him a lot more than me because I have a lot more off days than you do. How impressive was his season defensively, even just using the eye test?
It was great. It was phenomenal. He was tremendous defensively, not only at third, but also at second. He was there more in the first half. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers took over on a day-to-day basis for most of the second half of the season at second. But he played Gold Glove caliber defense at both spots. I think the final totals, Patrick, you're always great about this. I think he ended up with 95 starts at third base. And he led all of baseball in defensive runs saved at third. Some of the advanced metrics are going to point to Ryan McMahon as the best defender in the National League at third. Cabrian Hayes also had really good numbers. Nolan is in the conversation naturally for a Gold Glove, and well, he should be. He gets to a ton of baseballs. I think if you're going to ask me who I think will win it, I don't know if Ryan McMahon will win it because of the fact that he played less than 100 games at third base. We'll find out. It's almost a litmus test for how much the voters will pay attention to all of the advanced metrics. He deserves to be a finalist. Had he not been a finalist, that would have been criminal. I mean, he really deserves to be a finalist. Now, can he win it? Certainly. I hope so. And I think he certainly would be deserving. But then you're gonna have the argument, well, I don't know what Nolan played this year, probably 145 or 150 over there. And you go, well, this guy played, whatever it is, 40, 50 more games than, another player. So, that can be compelling also. In terms of German, what a neat thing. If this is the last year, and we all kind of assume it is, that the pitchers will hit to be able to be the Silver Slugger Award winner, the last one in the National League. I know that would mean a lot to German. He loves to hit. It's really important to him producing. And I think the award is really important to him. And I'd naturally love to see him win it. And he's going to be right in there with the guy who's starting tonight, Max Fried for Atlanta.
Yeah, and it'll be Marquez being remembered, as the last Silver Slugger Award winner for a pitcher. Should he win coming up this week, and Zach Greinke, who went and goes in the World Series, and you think, all right, he got his hit in game 4, comes back in game 5 with the pinch hit. So you've got those two guys kind of leading the charge for the hitting pitchers.
That was the hardest hit ball by an Astro the entire game. Came off the bat, at 106 point something or 107 miles an hour the other night. Greinke's a great athlete. Greinke's a phenomenal athlete, and he's reinvented himself. He's not in the mid-90s anymore. He's actually one of the softest throwers in baseball, but he's still very, very effective.
He'll tell you what's coming, and you still won't be able to hit it, right?
No.
Or be a weak contact. I was on a podcast earlier this week, and we were talking about some of the bigger end of season awards where the Rockies might factor in, and kind of came up this idea that Buddy could get a couple third place votes, right, for the job that he was able to do with the Rockies this year. For so many people kind of counting him out if you're one of the writers for the BBWAA and thought the Rockies aren't going to be very good. And then you look at the end of the season where they're at in the standings or their win-loss record, and you say, wow, you know what? They were a lot better than I had given them credit for. And depending on which city you're from, the Rockies may have handed it to that team at home. And so, I think that could be some potential for that, for a voter saying, acknowledging the great work Buddy was able to do as a veteran manager himself.
Yeah, I think Buddy did a tremendous job, especially given the fact that, many, many people and many of the, breakdown from an analytical standpoint had the Rockies losing 100+ games. I don't think Buddy, if he was sitting here, knowing him as well as I do, would celebrate whatever they finished with, 75 wins or whatever it was. That's not what it's about. That's not what he's about. I don't, if he gets a couple of people to acknowledge that, wow, the Rockies, were much better than many people thought, and Buddy is, a well-respected manager, I don't think he needs any of those votes. I think people recognize in the sport how good he is, and players love to play for him. And we'll talk more about this as the offseason continues. I mean, Buddy's one of their great assets, not only his steadiness at the top step of the dugout, but hopefully maybe in recruiting a couple of free agents to Denver, and some of the guys that are already on the roster saying, hey, this is a guy you want to play for. This is really a guy you want to play for. So I think, Gabe Kapler should win it from a unanimous standpoint. I think Dusty Baker deserves, a lot of credit now, a full season in his second year after what, they went through, and what a steady hand for Dusty. And then, the third guy that comes to mind, just the way, even though he got fired, Patrick, the way the Cardinals finished that month of September, Mike Schilt will probably get, a number of votes as well. And maybe Brian Snicker also. But your original point, whenever it comes to Buddy Black, I'm all in. And I'm not just saying that because I work closely with him. I think he's phenomenal. And I think the fact that he stays just like this, and he's, super competitive and always takes care of his players, but he can deliver a stern message behind closed doors. I think he's one of the best managers in the game.
Yeah, he deserves credit for the performance of the Rockies this year for sure. And the folks at Green Mountain Dental Group deserve to take some credit for those smiling Colorado sports fans around town, especially those of our DNVR listeners who switched to Green Mountain Dental Group over the years to make them their permanent family dentist. If you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, you'll receive a free Sonicare toothbrush from Green Mountain Dental Group, located only 15 minutes from downtown Denver. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, has an offer every football fan should be jumping in on. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and if they do, you win $200 in free bets. It's that easy and rewarding. DraftKings customers can also get skin in the game with new same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout, and the more legs you add, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, and best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and if they do, you win $200 in free bets. That's promo code DNVR this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only, new customers only, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522 4700. And one team that's always helping you win is Colorado XOs, your local rugby team. Colorado rugby team is back again, but now as the American Raptors. And if you haven't heard of them, they're Rugby Town USA's newest rugby team down in Glendale. And the American Raptors, if you didn't know, are athletes who have competed at the highest level of their respected sports, like football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, soccer, etc. But the best part about the American Raptors team and their game is that they're all free. That's right. Head over to AmericanRaptors.com and grab your free tickets for the upcoming season and subscribe to the weekly DNVR Rugby Podcast hosted by our guy, Colton Strickler. They've got it all covered for you. This week, Drew, we've been covering the top of the Rockies, some of the best events from the Rockies in 2021. And I was curious your takes on, best performance of the year. If there's one that jumps out to you as, this was the game that, was ultimately going to go down in the books as one of the biggest highlights in 2021 or a series of games, if you can recall from the season, which is now almost a month old.
I caught your show earlier in the week, and I know you mentioned Ryan McMahon's 3-homer game, and there were a couple other things that you mentioned. I emptied the computer at the end of the year, so I'm going to need your assistance. You're going to have to give me some options, and then I'll go, oh, yeah, well, you know what? I think I like that one for number one, because I do, man. I've told you this before. I have really good short-term retention. I'm a good test taker, so at 7 o'clock on a given night, I can give you all sorts of relevant and irrelevant information and disseminate it for you. And then the next day you'll say, hey, man, I missed a game last night. Who won? I'll say, the Rockies won. What was the score? 5-3. No, it was 6-3. 6-3. So when the season ends, I let it all go. Give me some options, and I'll tell you what I like.
You said Ryan McMahon 3-home run game. That was a big one. CJ Cron with 2 home runs and 7 RBI.
Yep, I heard you talking about that one.
Garrett Hampson had a 2-home run game there late in the season. That was critical. Charlie Blackmon, if you remember, in Pittsburgh, went 3 for 4, factored in all 4 runs, right? Going into the 9th inning, they were down by 1, had the game-tying RBI, also scored a run there on CJ Cron's hit. So he was huge in that game. You also had Herman Marquez, his no-hitter going into the 9th. Antonio Senzatella in Los Angeles, 7 scoreless innings.
I'm gonna do this. You've refreshed my memory enough that the Herman game will stand out because he was really close, and I've had the good fortune of doing the only no-hitter in Rockies history, obviously in 2010 with Ubaldo against the Atlanta Braves down at Turner Field. And I was on the other side, when Clayton Kershaw threw that unbelievable ball game in no-hitting the Rockies several years back. But I really felt like Herman was going to throw that no-hitter. That one stands out. Senza had so many good games, but that one in LA and where the Rockies ended up winning that series also is big. Let's not forget, the Rockies, I think, set a team record, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, for walk-off wins. They had
12.
Near the top of the heap in baseball this year in walk-off wins. And Elias Diaz had a couple of really big ones. 3 of them. Was it 3?
Yeah.
So I remember those. I remember Elias on one of them when he's coming home and it was like the bull in the china shop deal. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. So that's one of the dog yelling at the dog. Hey.
He's upset at you for missing. He's upset at you for missing some of those big games there. He's like, come on, Dad, you got to get those.
But you know what? The great thing about baseball is that even in a year where you don't go to the postseason, or maybe it's even a dark year, you're going to find victory. I'm sure Baltimore had some where they're like, man, that was a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, Baltimore won a handful of games. We know that for sure. Charlie Blackmon had 3 walk-offs too. Got to give him a lot of credit for that. There were a lot of good performances. I won't put you on the spot again for any specific. Well, actually, I do have one that's specific, and maybe you can give me a general sense. And there's an easy answer to this one as far as best of 2021. Best walk-up music. Now, there's a gimme in there.
Don't ever ask me that. Don't ever ask me that. You want to know why, Patrick? I swear, people for years will go, hey, what walk-up song do you like? I don't know any of them. I have the headsets on, and I'm focused on, doing my gig. And, okay, here comes Charlie Blackmon. I know, he plays that one. I don't know anybody's walk. The only one I can even think of on another team was a couple of years ago when the former Rocky Gerardo Parra had the
Baby Shark
one, which, I mean, that one became obvious. But I don't know, man. I'm locked in and I got the headsets on, so I don't really hear them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I could only the finalists in my book were the ones that I could remember, right? Because there weren't very many, and even a couple that I didn't know, but I had to look up. Like CJ Crone has a country song, and I'm not a huge country music fan, but there was just something about that one in particular. On a Saturday night or a night game at Coors Field, listening to some Cole Swindell, it just kind of puts you in the mood, right? It's just part of the ambiance and part of the whole experience.
Yeah, and some of them are creative, and I find out about them after. But like in the moment, I can't tell you. Garrett Hampson comes up to this, or Ryan McMahon walks up to the plate, to this tune.
I mean, hopefully Charlie Blackmon's, but again, I won't put you on the spot for that one. But
yeah, what it's something about the outfield, right? What is it? Yeah. It's by the outfield.
It's by the band The Outfield. Yeah, you go. Right. You got it. We got it. All right. Okay. Reliever of the year. Who would you pick? Now this one's hard because first half was rough for a lot of people. Second half, a lot of the relievers coming out of the old arm barn, as I believe we've all agreed.
Stop.
We've all agreed. No? Okay. Stop. The night shift. Did you like Tyler Matzik calling him the night shift? He said, me and the boys out in the night shift. I like that. That's a good term for the bullpen.
That's creative. Yeah.
That's going to stick. So from the night shift, is there someone that kind of stood out as having the best year overall?
I think you set this up properly. From the first half, Michael Givens, who's now with the Reds, threw the ball, I thought, pretty well before the trade deadline. There weren't a lot of standouts in the bullpen in the first half. Now, in the second half, I thought Tyler Kinley threw the ball really well. Carlos Estevez certainly, he had a couple of hiccups, but he stepped forward. Overall, given his rookie status, given his relative anonymity, Lucas Gilbreth maybe, right? Lucas Gilbreth really, stepped forward. And another guy I'm excited about seeing in year two that, was good early and good late and missed a good chunk of time, was Jordan Sheffield.
Yeah, I tried to kind of spread around the wealth with my awards because Gilbreth, I think, was in the conversation for reliever of the year. I had him as rookie of the year with Connor Joe as the fan favorite of the year, aptly named after Ryan Spilborghs, as he, I think, represents, the guy that just fans love.
Who's this?
Ryan, I don't. You would know. You would know. Ryan Spilborghs, fan favorite.
Never heard of him.
He's great walk-up music, actually. I don't know what Spilborgh's music was when he was coming up. It would certainly probably be different today now, I think.
Well, he almost got run out of Japan because his walk-up song when he was in Japan was Fashion Monster, and his manager told him in no uncertain terms that he had to change that song because it lacked fighting spirit.
There you go.
That actually is true.
You need some fighting spirit. Do you have a fighting spirit song, or would you just have a walk-up tune that would really just kind of get you into the moment, or an artist even that anytime you hear it, it evokes something positive within you?
I would probably, right now, again, you're asking me off the cuff. I would probably find something by like Zach Brown Band. I'm a huge Zach Brown Band fan, or maybe Darius Rucker. I'm a big Darius Rucker guy. I will say a few years ago, it's probably better part of 10 years ago now. Time flies. When I had left the Fan, but I was still doing some stuff at the Fan. And Hastings asked me. He goes, "All right, man, what's your walk-up song going to be all summer when you join us on the radio?" And I said, All Summer Long by Kid Rock. So that was, I kind of thought that was, for me at least, semi-clever, and, had a little bit of baseball and summer mixed in, and it was upbeat. And so, I could walk to the plate. That would get me fired up.
Those are my favorite ones, where it makes you feel like you're at a ballpark, right? It doesn't totally take you out of it. And again, at Coors Field, with the sun setting, that can make any song sound amazing. So, all right, those are good picks. One day, actually, as we wrap up here, I've been meaning for a couple weeks to introduce you slightly differently, and this ties in with walk-up music. I've been meaning to say, welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast. Today we have a great guest today. 2017 Colorado Rockies Fantasy Camp MVP, Drew Goodman. Drew, I hear you're a very good baseball player.
Well, that's very kind. I'm going to tell you a quick story. When I was covering ski racing, and I covered World Cup ski racing, but then I also covered back when there was the U.S. Pro Tour, and the Mayer brothers, and Phil especially, and Steve was a great skier also, but they're identical twins. I don't know if you know a lot about ski racing, but Phil Mayer is one of the all-time great U.S. skiers, and I think he won 3 overall World Cup titles. And he was great. And when he was on the U.S. Pro Tour, it was after his World Cup career, and to motivate him, he had on the tips of his skis, on one side it said "has been," on the other one, to motivate him, said like "never was." And I always remembered that. So I guess at some point in time, this is always relatively speaking, I was okay. But I wish I was a whole lot better. So I could have been one of those guys that played and got paid and then went to broadcasting. But thank you for those kind words.
You're good. What do you have a position? I just heard you're a very good hitter, but are you just strictly DH?
Well, no, I when I went to college as a catcher, and I played third as well. And I think if I did it all over again, because my dad was like 6 foot, and I always thought I was going to, grow. And so I loved catching. But I think I would have, when I go to fantasy camp, I play short, but I think I probably would have been, like second base, probably from a physical stature standpoint, would have, fit me best at the higher, levels. But I love catching because I love being involved in every play.
Yeah, it is the best position, I think, for sure. But it's good to know that, if you did it all over again, you could be Jose Altuve, dare I say.
Well, here's the thing, Patrick, I don't know if I've mentioned it to you on your show. Whenever I see Jose Altuve, and I've done this with Ozzie Albies also, kind of as a ha-ha, I'll walk up to them and I say, you know what, I could post your little ass up. That old line. But it's nice. It's nice to see guys. That's great thing about baseball. It's not just, you don't have to be Aaron Judge's size or Giancarlo Stanton's size to perform at the highest level. Do you see that thing on Twitter the other day, Patrick? There was a shot of Altuve and Judge standing next to each other, and it said, who's hit more postseason homers? Or it said like one guy's hit 20 some odd postseason homers, and the other guy has whatever Aaron Judge has. Nobody would ever guess that. And literally, you could stack Jose Altuve on his own shoulders, and he may come up to Aaron Judge.
Yeah, the big guy has not only 0 home runs in the World Series, but he hasn't even played in the World Series just yet. So, that is wild to think about that juxtaposition there. But hopefully Fox Sports isn't too mad at us for having the best pregame World Series Game 6 show here in the nation. But Goody, I appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to doing this every single week.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime. And
tell us what's going on this week. We got the show. I mean, I listened to the Pujols episode twice. That's how fantastic it was. Two back-to-back fantastic ones with Chris Forbes, Albert Pujols. Still go back and listen to it, even if you've already done so.
Yeah, Albert was great. I thought, I think I put out on Twitter, he was very reflective, and He's a guy that has lived a charmed baseball life, but he understands that. He doesn't take it for granted. He's always had great humility. So, that conversation on my podcast with Albert, I think is a special one. And that's, they're always available. And then this week, I think I'm going to, I know I'm going to do a sit down. We're going to talk football with, because, I like to branch out, and we'll talk. I'm going to talk baseball quite a bit. But my guest is going to be Joel Dreesen, the former outstanding tight end at Colorado State, who had a really nice NFL career and back in his home state of Colorado. And we're going to talk about Colorado State. We're going to talk about the NFL, talk about the Broncos. They've made a lot of news over the last 24 hours with the Von Miller deal. But I'm looking forward to spending some time with Joel, who's a really good guy. So he'll be on this week. But Albert Pujols is still sitting there waiting for you guys to consume that. So thanks for the plug. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a good scoop because, in that interview, he essentially said, I want to keep playing. And he did. He's in Dominican Republic right now, had a walk-off base hit the other day. So that's
you know what? I thought that was really neat that I saw, that you followed up and it tweeted that out. And, I retweeted that he's down there, playing in the Dominican. And, he's a guy that wants to give back. And listen, he had I want to say, Patrick, I think it was a 759 OPS with the Dodgers and a lot of big hits. He had a big hit against the Rockies late in the season, if you remember, to drive in the go-ahead run off the bench in the ninth inning with a single up the middle. Based on what we were seeing in his, few months with the Dodgers, there's still something left in the tank. And he's going to. I think everybody assumed that he would end up with an American League club, and he ends up with LA. And now next year, again, assuming there's a DH, it makes his services not just with the bat, but kind of having a player coach. A Hall of Famer in your clubhouse. I would imagine that his phone's going to ring.
Hey, we'll have to talk about that next week on the DNVR Rockies podcast. Again, thank you again, Goody. Make sure you're like, share, and subscribe. The Drew Goodman podcast dropping every Thursday. So for DNVR Sports, he's Drew Goodman. I'm Patrick Lyons. Thank you for tuning in to the DNVR Rockies podcast.